Today's episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast is brought to you by AOS Outdoor Kitchens. They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists. Welcome to another episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast. Today we're talking to Alex from Hunter Gatherer Cooking, well-known YouTuber, live fire cook. Really keen to understand a little bit more about his story. So without much further ado, here's Alex. Well, welcome to the show, Alex. Really pleased to have you on. Please introduce yourself and tell our guests who you are.
My name's Alex. I'm the, I don't know what I call myself, but owner, editor of Hunter Gatherer Cooking. That is a food lifestyle blog that gets me all over the country, sometimes out the country as well. And it's split between barbecuing, shooting, country lifestyle, all that sort of thing, really. So I like to support lots of small businesses in different ways, basically.
It's really inspiring, the different food that you're highlighting on there. It's one of the main reasons we wanted to reach out to you, because I mean, it's beautiful just going through your Instagram feed, and your videos are engaging and inspiring. What originally got you into it?
So my barbecue journey, like, every kid is into barbecue because their dads do it and things like that. So that it started way back then, but it really started, believe it or not, with a gas barbecue for my 30th. And that was going well. I had one of these big Outback 6-burner gas barbecues, and somewhere I read or I watched a video about you could smoke on a gas barbecue. And I tried it, and it sort of worked, and I was really enjoying it. And I was getting up at 4 a.m. to put whatever on, and that went really, really well. And then I got given a water smoker. Are you guys familiar with those little things?
I'm
like
not.
A
water pan, or
no? So it looks a bit like R2-D2. So it's kind of it's sort of that shaped.
Yeah.
And then you have effectively a bowl at the bottom with fire, and then you have a bowl over it that has water in it, which helps control the temperature, moisture, all that sort of thing. And then you normally have a grill, another grill, and then R2's head, basically. Yeah. And it was one of these cheapies off of Amazon. So the airflow and the design was absolutely shocking. It was one of those where you commit to it, you're down on your hands and knees, and you are blowing until your chicken hits temperature and that sort of thing. And I really enjoyed it, to be honest, even though it was hard work. And that then led on to me rescuing, I rehomed an offset smoker off of Facebook. And this, bless her, this lady, she had it on Facebook for, I think it was £10. She'd mounted it on backwards to the trolley. It was in a terrible, terrible sort of state. So I kind of, I did it up, repainted it, put a new shelf on it, put a little sticker on there. And to this day, that is my favorite way of smoking. In my opinion, offset smoking is the best way and the cleanest way to actually smoke food. And then by that point, someone had said, "Oh, you should go on Instagram." And I wasn't really up for it at the time. And, there was too many people taking selfies and all this sort of thing. But I did. And then I got swallowed by the animal itself. And then the brand started coming, and I teamed up with Somerset grills, which you can probably see one behind me. And then things snowballed, basically. So that's kind of how I got into barbecue, and just, I guess, the love of it. Never really enjoyed cooking inside. I think anyone who cooks outside, without being sexist, like, most blokes like that. There's some fantastic up and coming female barbecuers and things like that, but there's just something about cooking outside. For me, with fire, so one route that I never went down, I never really went down the whole green egg or Joe route. So for me, even though they're the Kamados, I call that lid down cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't excite me. There's nothing wrong with it. They're amazing bits of kits. I do have a Kamado. I've got a barrel Kamado over there, but for me, I like the meat or the veg, whatever it is. I want to see it. I want to see it sort of change from raw to golden and caramelize and eventually burn. Um, so that's kind
I
of my
think the
thing.
technical term is charred, isn't it?
Well, it depends. It depends on how far you take the char, I suppose. But I then so my background, I'm actually in recruitment. I'm a director in a firm in Bristol, and whilst all that was going on, that was quite stressful. Being in that sort of sales environment, and part of what I was doing, I was getting up on normally a Saturday morning or Sunday, sometimes in the week actually. And there was actually a guy over in America. You might have heard him. Have you heard of Sasquatch Barbecue?
Yes.
Absolute legend of a bloke. Love to meet him. His thing was he'd toss the butter over his shoulder and it would land in the pan. So he was part of my inspiration. And I thought I could do that. I haven't quite got the Canadian backdrop that he had, but my goal was to kind of find some nice places. So I'd look for rivers and lakes and waterfalls. I'm in Bristol, so I've actually done one right underneath the flyover, looking at the suspension bridge and things. Where are you guys based?
So
Essex.
it's a good question. Ipswich, but I'm originally from Wales, so I know Bristol quite well.
Yeah,
and
so
I'm from Devon
I used
originally.
to do a lot. I used to do a lot just looking out over the Severn and things like that. So it was very much therapy. Like fire cooking to me is therapy, and it's just fun. And it doesn't always go right, does it? You know, a lot of things go wrong.
We'll come on to that later.
yeah, all right.
That's half the fun, though.
That's how I fell into it. It sort of engulfed me.
And where did the other elements come in? So obviously, like you said, kind of when in introducing yourself, it's about that kind of lifestyle. So it's barbecue, but you're also talking about shooting as well as supporting local business.
Hunter-gatherer cooking, the name, I virtually pulled out my backside at the time. When you're setting up an Instagram account, I mean, even that process was new to me at the time. And obviously, you've got to choose a name. I don't know where it came from. I started searching and it was available. So I went with it. And then when I was rolling with it for a while, I thought, well, I'm not a hunter. Even though I'm from the countryside, my parents were always sort of white collar, really. But what I wanted to do, and another massive sort of part of the journey, was there's a pub on the outskirts of Bristol, and we were going there for a work incentive. It was like a really nice meal, 10 plates or whatever with wine flight and all that. And we jumped onto the website, and I was really, really inspired because they had listed every single supplier that they use on there. So down to the ice cream, to the cutlery, the plates, the knives that the chef used, like literally everything was there to try and support all of the different brands. And I made a connection that I didn't want to be. I thought at one point I wanted to kind of be like a food blogger, people that take pictures of their plates and things. Nothing wrong with that. But what I wanted to do is I was more interested in how did the food get on the plate and who are the people behind the food. And one of the companies who were listed on the website was actually one of my friends who makes ice cream. Another one was quite a well-known knife maker and things like that. And I just thought, well, if they're doing it, other people are doing it. And what I would then try and eventually do is I would try and just get hold of them and just say, love what you're doing. I'd love to come and see you. And perhaps take some pictures and make some films and things like that. And that's then one side of it, where I go out to small businesses and effectively try and put a little bit of promo together for them, cost free. But at the same time, I'm learning about what it is that they're doing. And generally, I'll go home with a bottle of something or a packet of something, that they've made. And then I can then produce a little bit more content around it. So that's that. And then, so hunter-gatherer cooking was never meant to actually be anything. And then the middle part is when I tried to fudge what I thought the name could be, I told people, and I did believe this, is that the modern person doesn't obviously hunt with bows and arrows and rifles and things like that. That's a very small percentage of the population. And I thought, well, it's a little bit cheesy, but we hunt with our debit card and our credit card, and we go online and we buy these things, and our weapon is our bit of plastic. And then, of course, lockdown came, and all of the farm shops, all of the food and drink producers suddenly started doing home delivery. And so it was a little bit more relevant. It was very, very relevant. And so I did a little bit about finding amazing farm shops, and farm shops vary across the country. You know, you've got places like Dalesford, which are like the Harrods of farm shops, all the way down to a farmer with a wooden cart, you know, just selling off a little bit of fruit and veg or whatever it is that they've got. And I really enjoy it. I really, really enjoy going out, finding new farm shops, seeing the different products, seeing the small brands coming up, because the British brands seem to be growing. Hopefully they're doing well. And then about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I was due to go to an estate in Bristol, and I had a message from a guy, and he said, "Would you like to go on a deer stalk?" And I was like, "Yeah, that would be amazing." And I remember the day. He said, "Can you make Thursday?" I said, "I can't Thursday because I'm going to the estate." And he said, "Well, I'm the estate manager for that, so let's just meet there." So we met up. I had a tour of the estate for what I was doing with them, and then met up with Matt, and we hit it off instantly. You know, it was like two kindred spirits, massively inappropriate conversations almost instantly. And he took me out on a deer stalk, and it was an absolute eye-opener. So many firsts that night. I'd never heard a gun being fired. Never seen an animal being shot. Never seen an animal get processed. You know, and gutted and things like that. And I was just in absolute awe. And I just found it fascinating, the skills that he had to actually to do it. I suppose the guts of actually doing it. You know, he's got the conviction to do it. And then I started questioning around, you know, again, the brands, you know, which companies are supporting him and things like that. And luckily, through fate, he had a lot high end kit, and so that was a new focus for me. Was actually, you know, that kit and equipment, the sights, the thermals, all that sort of thing, that enables him to take a safe shot, which sounds a bit daft because you're killing an animal, but the last thing anyone would want to do would be to injure the animal. They would rather completely miss and it just runs off, and you know, you go another day. What all stalkers? It's a weird one. They call them stalkers in this country, but I'll say hunters for now. They want them to drop instantly. They don't want them to feel anything. They don't want them to know about anything. And the deer that was shot on the night that I was out, it was in like a bowl. And when we approached the deer, obviously it was dead, and it had a dandelion in its mouth, and that is the last thing it knew. And then when you compare that to the meat processing industry, where animals are taken from the field, taken from their family, as it were, put onto the back of a lorry, which it's probably never been on, may or may not have food and water, sent to a place that must look and sound absolutely horrific, probably to meet a horrific end. I kind of made a decision that I quite like the other version of that, where they're out in the field and they know nothing about it. And something happened, I don't know, about 2 years ago, just less than 2 years ago, I switched. I never planned to take a shot. And one day I just said, I want to do this. And I applied for my license, took nearly a year to get it. And then I wanted to take it even further and get my own rifle. And then a few weeks back, I ended up shooting my first deer with that rifle. I shot my first one a while ago up in Scotland. But it's just been an absolutely incredible journey, learning everything around that. And harvesting your own food, there's just no other sensation like it. Absolutely nothing like it. Have you guys done anything similar?
No, no, is the short answer.
If
And
you get
again,
an
that's one.
opportunity, take it.
I've
You
been
might,
on like a course where they were kind of shooting rabbits, and I was there for the whole processing of
yeah,
that, which was a real eye opener. But it's
yeah,
not something that I've physically taken a gun and done it. And I think a lot of people have strange feelings about it, but it gives you a very different respect for the
yeah,
animal and the meat. And I totally connect with the clean kill concepts that you're talking about as
yeah,
well, and how it's far less stressful for the animal than what's happening across the country, across the globe.
yeah. There's a
Yeah,
lot of people when you talk about the food industry and abattoirs and things like that. The first thing they do is la 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 la. They
yeah,
they they don't want to know, and I do get that. I get that completely. But when I had shot my first deer with my rifle recently, it was a really unique feeling because even though I literally had blood on my hands, I almost felt like I didn't, because that meal was not going to be part of the abattoir journey. I could safely say that animal didn't suffer. And it was really nice because I always get this wrong. Is it RNLI, the lifeboats, or RLNI? Anyway, the lifeboats.
Yeah.
I did a barbecue for them last week for their 200th anniversary, and we took the two haunches from the venison, and I was telling people I shot that, and it didn't suffer in any way, and yeah, it was a fantastic night, fantastic meal. But to be
What
able
sort of
to stay,
reaction did what sort of reaction
well,
did you get when you say I shot this? Are people kind of
yeah,
taken back by it, or
they were loving it. They said, "Oh, first of all, is that venison?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And then they said, "Well, where did you get it from?" And I said, I shot that locally recently." And then started telling them, and then actually, we ended up looking at pictures and things like that, and it's a weird one. My biggest thing is I hate waste. Absolutely hate waste. That most of what I've found is that even with games of pheasants and things like that, not a lot gets wasted as far as I can tell. It usually ends up being used, goes into the sort of the a food chain, whether it's human or animal. It usually ends up somewhere. But end of last year, I was nominated for an award with Eat Game, and I was in for Best Educator, which felt really, really weird because at that time, I mean, I still don't know much, but at that time, I kind of knew even less. And it felt weird to be up for an education type award when, I'm an absolute amateur myself. But they explained it to me eventually, and it was because what I am trying to do is I am trying to educate more people about, one, how good game is, the benefits of everything, and just how much we actually have of it. And people don't realize it. We seem to be stuck on chickens, cows, pigs, lamb, all the usual farmyard stuff, but yet we don't eat pheasant, rabbit, deer, duck, geese, all of this sort of thing that's out there. We don't, for some reason. It's a bizarre food fashion.
were you kind of always into game and eating game fairly
No,
regularly before
no,
this journey, or is it just
no,
a part of the journey?
no. I was part of the. I was part of the assumption, I suppose, that game, venison is for Christmas, and game is, a lot of people. Oh, what's it like? Oh, is it gamey? It can be. It depends on how long it's been hung for. Um, but I mean, we went to the game fair the other week, and the best thing I ate there, and probably the best thing I'd had for a year or so, was there was pheasant goujons, and they were absolutely spectacular. They were mind-blowing how good these goujons were. I'm going to do some here and try and replicate one of their recipes, but their particular recipe that for the outside and these sort of deep fat fried pheasant goujons, they were just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And then there was a venison burger, which, well, it definitely was the best burger I've ever had. The flavor was unreal. They just absolutely nailed it. But I don't just obviously eat game. I still enjoy steak and pork and everything else. But what I'm trying to do is I try and source the meat. You can't say as ethically as possible. I try and go to a farm shop that sort of supporting like sort of eat local, and I do talk to the butchers and I do ask where it's come from. And it's nice when it says it comes from 2 miles up the road or whatever. So I'm trying to sort of do all that really. I'm trying to get into an abattoir to actually see what it's like. I think it'll be a horrific experience, but I'd weirdly like to put myself through it just to say I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've got friends who've worked in that they went out traveling to Australia, and they worked in an abattoir for a period, and they both said it changed their perspective completely on food.
Yeah.
One of them went vegetarian pretty much instantly.
Yeah.
And the other pretty much tries to source their meat in the most ethical way possible, to the point of asking butchers where it was processed and everything in the first place.
And I'd be interested in how I felt afterwards. It could completely change you, couldn't it? I'd like to think I wouldn't stop eating meat because obviously I enjoy it, but it would be memorable, definitely. So so now the idea is that I want to go out. I want to shoot more deer for myself. I'm not looking to go commercial with that at all, but to sort of string it up here, and to skin it, put it on the butcher's block, and slap it straight on the grills. Basically, that's my kind of dream at the moment, whilst making loads of content and trying to share ideas and create a few different habits, I suppose.
And I saw on your website that you can also do some like classes or live fire cooking, where you potentially go to other people's houses as well. So in terms of kind of your educating about game and that kind of lifestyle as well, do you bring that to your kind of cooking sessions, whether you're going to someone's house or not?
Yeah, so depending on what they want to cook, I'll always say, what do you want to eat? Do you want to cook game? Most people go for it, to be fair. Most people haven't cooked it. This perception that it's dry or it will dry out, which it will, but I cook all meat the same, basically. You cook to temperature. I cook to color and effectively dryness. So I like to keep basting it to keep it sort of moist and things like that. But if you cook to temperature within reason, you can't really go wrong. It's only if you keep going and going and going, you've absolutely murdered it, and it's bone dry. But again, like game for me, I don't like it too gamey. So I don't want something that's been hung up for ages and ages. Some people love it. They love it when their venison and their pheasant honks, but that's too much for me. I like it to be meaty, basically. And it's got it's got its own flavors. And this journey has led me to meet with chefs. One in particular, Jose Suto, who's a game chef. His knowledge is absolutely phenomenal. He's the type of guy that can not only shoot it himself, he can tell you the ancestry of all of the species, and then he can cook it up and prepare a really top level feast as well. So there's we've just got into this habit of eating set food and going back to barbecue, because this is really what this should be about. I've got this, not theory, but I've got this thing at the moment where I'm not against barbecue rubs, by the way. I love them. I've used Tubby Tom's tonight, and it was spectacular. Actually, I can't remember what it was called, but it was really good. But I've got this thing where I wonder if we are going for so many rubs because our meat has got boring. So, like chicken, for example, I've just had a lovely pasture raised one, full of flavour, but that's completely different to a supermarket one, and that's just purely because it's been living outside, it's been scratching around, it's twice, if not three times, as old as the other one, and I wonder whether our soil qualities have dropped. Do our animals not taste as good, and therefore we load up on rubs and things like that? I did an open day at a farm, and he had some pasture raised chicken wings, basically. And all we did is we salt and peppered them. That's all it was. And we just did them on the grills until they were golden and crispy, and we served them up. And people's like lids literally flipped. And they were saying, "What flavor is this?" And we're like, "It's chicken." Yeah, but what did you put on it? It's like just salt and pepper. But it's, when you've got product that is that good, salt, I'm not not biologist. What's that? Anyway, it should just enhance that flavor, and a little bit of pepper if you like it. So for me, I actually like to do less with meat. So normally it's salt, pepper, maybe a bit of garlic, probably too much butter. Like, I'm one of them, unfortunately. Half a block of butter's got to be used each time. But I like the meat to talk for itself, basically. Mm-hmm. And so when I taste it, I'm tasting what that meat is like, not what the rub was that I used that's clearly going to mask it and things like that. But as I said, I'm not against rubs. I just wonder whether we lean on that because, has food got boring, basically?
Yeah, it's. I always think it's fascinating when people at some point, and I hope people listen to this will try it, make the flip to buying all of their meat from a butcher and different places, and straight away the difference in just chicken breasts when they're not pumped full of moisture and things, the color's different. Depending on kind of the chicken that you're buying, you'll notice that it's a completely different color and has a different feel and texture to it. And the more that you explore and go down that journey, you think, well, what's happening to supermarket meat, and how has it changed over time as well? And the flavor profile is completely different. Even just going corn-fed chicken, for example, and it's a different. It's night and day just looking at the two, let alone before cooking it.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's different for supermarkets, though, isn't it? Unfortunately, they're in it for long shelf lives, maximize profit. So it's all about pumping full of water, weights, and preservatives, and
So I'm going to do a video on this, and I'm fully aware that going to a farm shop and spending 15-20 pounds on a chicken for some people is just not, it ain't ever going to happen. Mm-hmm. But going to red meat. So when I first started smoking, I didn't want to ruin a really expensive bit of beef or things like that. So I was using Aldi stuff, basically, the cheap roasts. And the video that I'm going to do is actually, you can take a cheap bit of supermarket meat and like a roasting joint. Now, normally that's the price is lower because it's probably been hacked apart by someone either with a large knife or a large chainsaw or something like that. And it's been thrown together in like a string net. Now, it's a little bit hit and miss what ends up in that net, and that's obviously that's why the price is what it is. But the video that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, actually, if you take the net off and on the outside of the meat you start to remove all of the sinew, all of the silver skin and things like that, if you cut it open, start to seam it out a little bit more, then wrap it back up, you can actually cook something. I've had really, really cheap bits of like supermarket meat and it's come out like fillet. It's just phenomenal. So I normally say, if your knife is struggling to cut it, because it's horrible stuff that you'll cut off, if your knife is struggling, your teeth are definitely going to struggle. And if you are serving something up, you might have the flavor right, but the second someone can't chew through it, you lose half all your points straight away. Because if you've got that horrible chewiness, you just lose instantly. The other thing I say, always have a little look at supermarket stuff, is just in case there's any glands and things that end up in there, which happens more than you think. We cut one out the other week. So anything like that, anything in a net that looks like it's sort of been thrown together, personally, I would open it up, have a little look at it, and just take out anything that's not meat. And you might remove a fair amount, but you will have a much better bite through on the end result, basically. Much better. So that's definitely a tip if budget is a thing, which it is for most people.
Yeah, like you said, I think often going to a butcher's and spending 15 quid, 20 quid, 50 quid on a turkey or whatever, that's the thing that you do at Christmas, isn't it? And that's just, and there's nothing wrong with that, but like you said, it's about making sure that you can try and find the best quality for what fits within your budget. And sometimes you do have to shop around.
Yeah, absolutely. But British barbecue is on the up. It has been for years and years. And compared to the Americans, I mean, apparently that's where it sort of originated with everything. I think we've got much better products and meats and things like that than the Americans, especially if it's sourced well. And I think that the chefs and the barbecue chefs, and even the barbecue brands and manufacturers, they're coming out with such good stuff now that I think British barbecue is some of the best in the world, if not the best. And it's, with lockdown and things like that, everyone turned to their kitchens and gardens, didn't they? Garden kitchens.
Same thing, right? Yeah, same thing. On that point, you mentioned the fact you've got the barrel clado. Talk us through the setup of what you're cooking on at home, but outside your home, as it were.
So that is a 4K Everjaw by Heston, which is a nice little barbecue. So it's an electric, it's like a hybrid barbecue. So you plug it in, it's got a heat coil at the bottom and it lights the charcoal. What's next to it? That is a fire cage, which I love cooking on. And then over here we've got the Somerset grill. And then over there I've got a Della Vita pizza oven. Over there's the barrel, and then in the garage there's a load of camping barbecues and fireboxes and grills and things like that. So that's the new setup. But that was, I mean, we really finished that like 2 weeks ago, basically. So that's pretty brand new at the moment. But the idea was, I wanted to create that not only to live in and cook in for myself, but to do a load of content and filming, and makes a nice little backdrop actually.
It's gorgeous. It is gorgeous.
I thought of this about 2 minutes before dialing in. I thought, oh, that'll look all right, probably, hopefully.
And is there one particular piece of equipment that you do gravitate to during the week, or does it differ from weekend to week?
So the Somerset grill stole my heart years ago, just purely because it's just open fire cooking. I really do like the fire cage as well, but open fire cooking's my favorite thing. But then I really like that Everjaw as well, because you can just chuck something on. We smoked a chicken tonight with a load of bacon and things like that. It's very easy. It's convenient. You can kind of shut the lid and you can forget about it because you've put a meter in. But if it was if I'm choosing something, I want to stand there and hold the tongs and click them together and turn it and twist it and move it about and prod the fire, and it's really nice on the Somerset. Have you got or used a Somerset grill?
I haven't.
No, I haven't.
You'll have to come on over then. We'll have a session on it.
Done.
But you have to fuel it, and then the embers drop down, so you've then got to move them about, then you've got to refuel it. and then you've got to make sure that your food isn't too close to that heat. It's just good fun. Like, I love tinkering, absolutely love tinkering, which is why I like offset smokers, because you've got to constantly keep fueling it. Same sort of thing again. Put too much on, you take the temperature too high, not enough, it might go out. I don't like easy. That might change, give me 10, 20 years, but anything like pellet smokers, I mean, again, they're amazing bits of kit, like absolutely phenomenal. But for me, it's too easy. I like it to go wrong, or like the fear of it going wrong. I tell you what, I did use the other day, though, one of those gravity
Master build? Is it the master build?
Yeah, the gravity, whatever it's
Bed
called.
one.
Series,
the 580, I think is
that was a brilliantly bizarre bit of kit to use. I was sort of just staring at it, just like, how does this work? I mean, I knew, but it's almost like an air fryer, but with charcoal, because it blows out this smoky hot air. And your coals aren't underneath at all. It's all to the side. Yeah, very, very clever bit of kit. Really, really fun. But yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I've got one of their portable versions. So you have
right.
a little firebox to the side, and again a little fan that you can either use on battery because it's portable, so it kind of collapses and you can wheel it away, which is quite good for camping or being out and about. But I think it works similarly in that the firebox is to the side.
They do like a smaller travel version, do they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I'll send you a link afterwards.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that.
It's about 400 quid. So I recently we had a little like caravan kind of holiday with the wife and kids, and just back of the car, collapsed it down. It's super simple. Clicks back up, and you've got a
one
fully
of my
working barbecue.
It's a camping barbecue. Have you heard of a Lotus Grill?
Yeah.
Yes.
They're just brilliant in terms of like ease. They're not the best in terms of flavor, or not what I would call proper barbecue, but you can set it on your lap to cook. It's so easy to clean, and you can get going in minutes. I think it's just such a clever bit of kit.
And are you often out and about in that, taking things like your Lotus Grill? So you're on the go a fair amount?
I used to be out more. I used to be out a lot more. And I was on my own cooking in the arse end of nowhere. And now it's just a time thing, with work commitments and everything else, and then filming and things like that. It's just different. I mean, what I would like to do is almost bring back some of the past where I was doing that. So I'd like to actually go out, try and get a deer where possible, and then have a bit of cooking equipment with me. I do want to do a video where I eat effectively fresh meat, because normally it needs to hang and things. But I'd like to do the experiment of just trying it literally fresh. But I would take some stuff with me and then sort of cook it out and about. I'm really, really lucky because I get invited out to places a lot. I'm extremely lucky in that department. And it'd be quite nice to do it. So I had two major projects recently. One was this thing behind me. That started, I say the planning. There was no planning, but like the initial planning in your head started in March, and I started digging random holes in the ground, and it was like, oh, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And then the other project was actually getting a rifle for myself. So now those two are out the way, it is almost like, what is the next chapter? So I think what it looks like is more deer shooting for me, which makes the table look better. Bringing it back here and actually sort of processing it and cooking it myself. Going out with other people and doing lots more things like this, in a way, podcasts and things like that, and more fire cooking sort of on the hoof, as well as small businesses and camping and glamping and everything else that I seem to have done for the last 5 years. I enjoy it all, really. For me, it's the people behind all the businesses. I'd like to sound good friends with sort of everyone that I've met. Always stay in contact. You never know. You never know who you're going to meet and how you might be able to help each other.
If you've been looking or thinking about an outdoor kitchen, then look no further than AOS Outdoor Kitchens.
They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.
Their extensive showroom is based just outside Bournemouth on the Dorset-Hampshire border, and as well as numerous in-store displays, also features a live outdoor kitchen where they cook every week on Kamado grills, pizza ovens, and all filmed and shown on YouTube.
They offer a wealth of knowledge on how to transform your patio into the most incredible outdoor dining area with styles and options to suit every budget, and you can guarantee they will be able to create something perfectly suited to you and your home.
They stock and supply everything that you're going to need for outdoor cooking, including barbecues, Kamado ovens, pizza ovens, outdoor fridges, and every accessory that you would need to become the ultimate outdoor chef.
So if you want to make yourself the envy of your friends and neighbours, get in touch with them today to arrange a consultation and take the first step in transforming your back garden into the most incredible entertainment space.
Visit aoskitchens.co.uk. Can we just take it back slightly? So we were talking about, I think right at the beginning, you were talking about some of sometimes things don't go so well when you're sort of doing cooking.
We're having that conversation, are we?
Yeah,
absolutely. We hold the barbecue fail so dear on this podcast. We love to hear people's stories about what hasn't gone so well. So have you got any, hopefully some amusing ones for us?
The absolute worst one was... So I say that I like an offset smoker. So my offset smoker was a cheapie. This thing I got off of Facebook. So they're not that big, but you could get, what could you get on there? Three, maybe 4 chickens, give or take. I put a turkey on it. Now, technically, it fitted, and the hatch shut. But what I didn't take into consideration was that turkey's arse was blocking everything. It had no airflow out through the chimney.
Look, we've all been there, right? We've all been there. Let's not get personal.
Yeah. So this thing is basically rammed into this drum, and I just didn't think it wasn't a thought that came into my head. There must have been a few gaps because I managed well. So the meter went off, the turkey was done, apparently, which was a lot quicker than it should have been done. And I opened it up and it was the largest lump of charcoal I've ever seen in my entire life. It was just completely and utterly black. I've never seen a blacker material, basically. And it was completely buggered, basically. However, took it inside knowing that it was cooked, because the meter said it was cooked. It was all up to temperature. And I peeled all the skin away, which was, the bacon that was on top. That was long gone. It wasn't even leather. It was like space dust, basically. And we peeled it away. But the meat underneath was absolutely magnificent still. And it had like a really nice sort of that red smoke. I say ring, but it was just red and smoky, and it was still moist. It was great, but yeah, it looked like a big lump of charcoal. I'll send you a picture after this. It was impressively horrific.
It's awesome that you managed to sort of. It's still edible and that it wasn't completely gone.
Yeah, we had some, as a meal there and then. And then, like a lot of turkey that I do, you end up turning into something. So I love a turkey and leek pie and things like that. So yeah, turn it into that. That's another thing that as a population, we just waste so much. Technically, we should be turning chicken carcasses into stocks and things like that.
Oh yeah, I used to do that,
but we don't do it.
I need to get back into it. I blame both of my children because I lost the time. But I used to pick Sundays as what I called stock meals, and every Sunday I would cook either a whole chicken or I'd take a huge piece of beef and I'd kind of completely break it down, portion it out, freezer it, or pre-cook meals and freezer it. And then if it was a chicken, I'd then put the carcass back into a pot, onion, celery, carrots, water.
And it's easy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is.
But what is easier?
Not doing it.
getting the pot of Bisto out or whatever it is, and adding it to a pan of boiling water.
But it's also like people don't realize what real stock is, and the fact that like bits of it jellify and stuff, and the flavor is so much different, you know?
Yeah, and if you can stretch it out to the next day, it'll be even better again. I mean, like when I was in the early days, when it was literally just about fire cooking, I was out here every day in the freezing cold, and I was just fire cooking. I was just really, really enjoying it. And if it was, 1 degree and snow and things like that, I did this series called Will It Batter? And I dip random things in batter and see if it battered. And I was cold one day, and someone had sent me a fruit and veg box, but it was like a Jamaican fruit and veg box, and it had these had some Scotch bonnets in there. And I sat down and I turned the camera on and I just put a Scotch bonnet straight in my mouth. And next thing I know, I can't breathe. I'm coughing. I'm nearly throwing up. But and then what's weird is after you've done that, and I did a few things where I did some like stupidly hot sauces, and then people think that you like it, so they give you more of it, and I'm like, I don't like this. I don't enjoy it. And I want to die whilst it's happening. And then you get chili oil sets for Christmas and things like that, which I quite like. But I don't like it too hot. I like a bit of heat, but I don't want to be in pain whilst I'm eating.
I did that. I got bought for Christmas that one chip challenge. You know that.
Yeah. Let's see, I would be up for that, because that's just a bit stupid, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's all bravado. But
what's the fermented fish one? Do you know the one I mean?
Yes.
Skolgard.
Something like that.
Yeah.
The one where you've got to do it outside, and
people are throwing up from the smell before.
I was going to say most people, as soon as they open the tin, throw up, don't they?
Yeah. I'd like to experience that. I don't know why. Just I'm wired up wrong.
Yeah, it's on barbecue fails. I don't know if anyone else is guilty of this, but I want to talk more about a practice that I have that I should really try and reduce. So before we go into this, let's say to everyone, please drink responsibly. Don't do anything that's bad. But I have an awful habit of wanting to barbecue and grill after a fair few beers, particularly if I'm doing low and slow. I mean, last episode, which hasn't aired yet, but I talked about a brisket that I cooked when Owen came over. That was after I went to London for a full day with friends and had been drinking, and got back in at about midnight and lit the grill then. I love it. I enjoy it. It feels like a nice way to cap off before going to bed, as long as you know what you're doing, of course.
Definitely safe.
Yeah, 100% safe, and if it wasn't, I'd stop apparently. But it's something I gravitate to after a few drinks as like a comfort thing. But I remember in the past getting so excited that I was going to be doing a low slow pulled pork. I was doing it with different cut. I hadn't done it with neck before. Really excited about it. Had some friends over during the day. Had a few drinks. And then kind of got to midnight. I was thinking, right, I need to put this on now. And then I can check on it at 4, 6, 8. Hopefully it'll be done by 9 or 10. Rest it for a few hours. 1, 2 o'clock. Bish, bash, bosh, right? Set everything up. Get everything out there. Work out what coals I'm using. I've prepped the meat. Kind of get that ready. Put the chimney starter on. Think, right, I've got everything sorted. Picked out the wood. Like, great. Went to bed. Alarm went off at 4. Went back downstairs. Went outside. Chimney starter full of coals still on the grill. Firelighter on the side and everything. Just completely forgotten to kind of light it, as it were, which was a big fail. And you find out ways to sort it out, right? But do you find that there's a certain time when you're drawn to fire cooking more than others? For me, it's if I've had a hard week, I want to get out there on the grill. Or if I've had a few drinks, I'm like, is there anything anywhere that's doing barbecue? Am I over someone else's house and they've got a barbecue? Should I like the barbecue?
To be honest, Yeah, I'm probably so into this now. I'm just constantly doing it, so I'm constantly drawn to it. But I do know exactly what you mean. I'll tell you what's really hard though is when you go round to someone else's house and you've been told beforehand not to say anything. If you
Yeah.
see something and you sat there and my brother, oh no, I shouldn't say names, should I?
Steve.
Someone
Brother's friend's friend.
and you're sat there and you've got a drink in your hand and everything's going well and they've walked off and they've left the grill and you're like, they'll be back though, right? They'll come back because that's going to need turning in a second and it's quite hot as it is. So and then they don't come back and you sat there thinking, well, I was told not to say anything, so I definitely shouldn't do anything. And then they don't come back, and then you get served this cremated food that they're saying is wonderful, and you're like, yes, can I have some more water, please?
I don't think
Yeah.
I'd help myself. I think I have just taken over before.
Oh yeah,
I-
but it happens, doesn't it? Like even now, friends, family, it's like, oh, are you okay to do the barbecue? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But to be honest, I'd rather do it because then you're more involved, aren't you?
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy it. But how rubbish is going out for some restaurant food now? It's not fire cooked. I find it so boring sometimes. Especially a steak, unfortunately. Like I've had such good steaks, and I've cooked them myself, and then you go out and you just think I could do that one better. So eating out is ruin. But actually, when you do find somewhere like these venison burgers that we had the other day, they were just spectacular, absolutely. And that's what I want when I go out for food. If I'm going to go out and pay, I want to leave thinking, "Oh my god, that was absolutely amazing." Not meh.
yeah. Dan, breakfast time. I think I quite enjoy it. So it's almost like fresh morning. Let's get some smoke going. Let's
Yeah,
cook some food. Right early in the morning. It kind of sets your day right. That smell that you have all day because of all the kind of wood and fire and yeah. I think
We
that's what's
talked about that. It should be an aftershave that's sold somewhere. That kind of smoked smell because some people absolutely love it and want to smell of that the whole time. Owen being one of them, right?
I
yeah.
don't. I don't. Sometimes I can smell myself. I'm like, I stink. It's absolutely horrible. But
Amount of times I've gone to bed and my wife's like, "Oh, could you just not have a shower?" And I'm like, "Nah, it's proper smell, mate. It's proper
yeah,
smell."
no, it drives me up the wall sometimes. But again, what I really like is I really love a really clean smoke. I find just insane. But again, when the smoke's dirty, I hate dirty smoke. I mean, I used some grapevine tonight with the chicken, and it's just it just came outside after being inside. I was like, wow, so good. Have you ever used grapevine?
Funnily
No.
enough, we talked about this in the last episode. I've recently moved and I've got a
Yeah,
load of grapevine
yeah,
down the side of kind of kept in a wood store where the previous owner, we've got a grapevine here, had been storing it and they'd just
yeah.
been using it for burning random stuff. So I want to use it, but
And you don't. It doesn't need to be like woody as such. It doesn't need to be chunks. I just used little branches, just little offcuts, and I just put it round the outside of the coal so it can kind of smolder and things like that. But it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Any fruit wood works really really well.
on that point of dirty smoke, it's a great tip because so many people get into barbecue and they start smoking stuff, and it's so easy, firstly, to get dirty smoke, but secondly, also to over smoke bits of
Yeah.
meat, depending what you're doing. What other great tips do you have? Because I hadn't personally ever thought about, and Owen might be the same as me, when you get those joints in the supermarket, even taking off the silver skin, it's so obvious to anyone who preps a brisket for themselves once they bought it. Why I've never thought to do that with a joint before, I don't know. Have you done that before, Owen, or do you just stick it in the oven or the barbecue, depending on what you're doing?
I mean, if I would probably just have a go at it first, to be fair, to trim it down. But
I've never
very
even
rarely get it from a
considered it.
supermarket.
You've got to, because the crap that you pull off. I mean, it's not crap. It's part of the animal. But effectively, you go to a butcher's, they will clean it up for you. But that cleaning has a price. That's why it costs more. But like I said, you can get your cheaper stuff, do it yourself, and you can achieve some spectacular results, because you're letting as you're holding it, you're letting your fingers do the talking. Your fingers will find what is soft and what is not soft, and then as soon as you find that harder sinew and things like that, you just cut it out, and you might end up, you might have this netted joint that you end up effectively butterflying. But again, it will, when you slice that up down the line, it will just be so much better. And I think as well, knowing what you're cooking and whether it's an A grade or a B grade bit of meat is really important. I mean, people talk about cutting steaks in a certain direction against the grain and things like that. My personal opinion on that is, if you've got A grade meat, it doesn't matter what direction you cut it, because the actual tenderness, the natural quality of the meat is good enough. Once you start going down to things like skirt and flank and all that sort of thing, that's when it comes into play. But things like fillet and ribeyes and sirloins and things like that, like, it doesn't make any difference. One thing that I do always say is, if you have got a tougher bit of meat, even if it's a steak or a roast, if you cut it thinner, your teeth will have to do less work, and therefore mentally it will be a nicer experience. So I did. Have you guys done a Tom and Jerry steak before? So sort of a disc through the leg.
No.
Or you got to do it. Your butcher will hate you, because it's a terrible way to. Well, it's not a terrible way. They can make more money butchering those joints of meat, because they'll turn them into roasting joints. So effectively, through the leg, you've got all of your roasting joints through there. But if you can get your butcher to, my one will, if you get something, I mean, we did it was about an inch, probably just over an inch thick, and we had this huge Tom and Jerry steak with the bone in the middle. But because because those are roasting joints, you need to cook it slower. Mm-hmm. So if you cook it slower, it'll break down a little bit, and then you sort of a high sear at the end. But then you cut it thin, and if you cut it thin, again, it should be fine. I had one. When was it? I think it was earlier in the year, and the taste was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, and really, really, really fun to do. And I always say, technically, if you're only cooking one steak like that, I mean, that could feed 20 people, but technically you've only got to cook one thing. So you only turn one thing, you cook one thing, and it all comes out. So if you can get your hands on one of those, definitely try that.
Never even heard of it.
Tom and Jerry steak.
No.
We've heard of Tom and Jerry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the dog that used to fight over the big steak in his mouth?
Butch? Was it called Butch?
Possibly. Yeah, I think you're right, actually. Yeah. So that's as far as I know. I don't know if there's any other names for it. Well, or technically, I'll tell you what you could call it. You could call it an ossobuco beef steak. That's effectively what it is, but it's not through the shin. It's up through that big thick part. But I'm going to be doing another one in a couple of weeks, actually. But let's just say it's going to be a lot bigger, a lot bigger. So I love cooking. I like big cuts. Are my thing. When we cooked a whole wild boar, that was insane. 15 hours, whole wild boar strung up. That was absolutely insane. So I'd quite like to do sort of more whole animals or whole joints.
Yeah, boar's lovely as well.
Yeah.
I think this is a really appropriate time to go on to our barbecue bingo.
Right.
Where while we're talking about ingredients and meats and cuts, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and you'll see our high-tech, high-cost wheel of ingredients.
Owen had to remortgage his house just to get this set up. So
Yeah. Lot of money. Lot of money.
yeah. For
Uh,
anyone listening, we've been Owen and I have talked about this over kind of previous conversations about what we should be doing, and we've thought about the fact that some people will be listening on kind of Spotify, etc. And so I should probably talk through what this wheel is exactly. So it's a list of ingredients that have been left by previous guests. And we set the challenge that we'll spin the wheel, whatever it lands on, we'll ask you to cook at some point in the future, and also talk through kind of your thought process of what you might be swayed to or leaning towards when you look at it. So some of the ingredients in there, in fact, I'll list them all for listeners. You've got Szechuan pepper, duck, chicken hearts, monkfish, pineapple, octopus, goat, vindaloo paste, andouille sausage, beef neck, kangaroo, tripe, frog legs, padron peppers, paella, and the final thing is my signature dish. So that's meant to be what you're known for when it comes to cooking. So with that in mind, what would you say is your signature dish?
I can tell you what is not my signature dish. Who put tripe on there?
I can't remember. It's been on there for a while.
I will eat most things, but I draw the line at tripe. That I've tried, and it's just no. It just physically won't go down.
Here we go. You know what's going to end up coming out,
Yeah,
as it were.
no, yeah.
Yeah, but like, what are you? I don't want to assume, but I'm guessing venison, right? Is kind of what you're known for, or is it different in personal kind of circles?
Well, what's the question? What I'm known for, or what my go-to would be?
You can interpret it
go-to?
either way, I would argue, Owen.
Because believe it or not, when I'm asked the question, what would you choose, land or sea? I think I would go with sea.
Oh,
I don't eat loads of fish, but when I do, I just go to a special place in my head every single time. You give me, well, potentially boring rainbow trout or something like
that is not boring. I love rainbow trout.
It just sends me to a really, really special place. Even prawns, giant prawns, scallops, mussels, in a white wine sauce, like all of that. That gets me going a lot. But I tend to cook a lot of red meat and things like that.
We're going to make you go sea, right? We're going to make you go sea or river, depending on how you're feeling at the time. If it lands on my signature dish, I love rainbow trout. Getting whimsical now, but and this is going to sound more grand than it was. Growing up, we had a river in our back garden. Welsh, so stereotypically, I have to live in a valley. That's the rules. So we had a river that ran through, and we used to get fishermen with waders on coming down the river. And quite often, if they caught something while they're on the banks of your garden, there was an unwritten rule that they'd either give you that fish or one of the other fish that they'd already caught. Yeah. And on the weekends, every Saturday, particularly when it was warmer, my dad would light the brick barbecue that he'd built, and he'd gamble on someone coming down and then put the fish, gut it, and put it straight on there. And rainbow trout, when we used to have it, was phenomenal.
But again, for me, I like to keep it really simple: salt, pepper, lemon. On most of the fish I have, that's what. Because again, I want to know, what does it taste like?
Yeah.
I had my first experience up in Scotland. We went salmon fishing on a Scottish river, and again, it was just spectacular. I didn't catch anything. I caught a little brown trout the size of your hand, but just again, the experience was just phenomenal to actually be up there and trying to pull one out the river. Are you going to spin it then?
Give it a go, right?
So I've then got to cook with it, and then I've got to put something back.
Yes, have a think about that.
Yeah. Right, let's give it a go.
Really? Oh,
goat.
Okay, that's really weird because I nearly got goat out tonight out the freezer. Um, okay, I will do you. What do you want? A recipe or what?
Where's your brain going in regards to goat? What are you
Oh, do you
thinking
know what?
initially?
I went to a goat farm and they said, "Yeah, we're going to do some filming," and they were phenomenal. Went up onto the hill, saw the goat. They were they were using this technology, so they had like things around their neck, and they geo fenced an area. And if the goats went outside of this geo fence, it would it shock them or make a noise or both? Anyway, and it worked. It was phenomenal to see. And she said, "Look, we'll send you home with some goat." I said, "Amazing, thank you." And she said, "Whatever you do, don't do a curry." And I said, Why on earth not?" So I can't remember what I did. I think I cooked. Was it like a goat? Was it goat steak or goat leg? Might have been a leg of goat. No, it wasn't. It was a kid rack. So the equivalent of a rack of lamb. Um. Anyway, I did it, and it didn't turn me on at all. And I think there's a reason why people throw goat into curry, is because it just makes it a little bit more interesting. I found I found the meat very goaty, basically.
Yeah. I struggle with goat's cheese.
Ah, now see, I quite like it if there's not too much of it. Obviously, it's very strong though, isn't it?
It tastes like agriculture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
Tastes
get
like
it.
farm.
I
Yeah,
get
it
it.
does. And I love
There's
cheese, but
certain things like if you try and make people try food, there's certain things that you're almost certainly not going to win. Goat is one of them. Lamb is usually another, and fish as well. You know that they are very distinct flavors and tastes and smells, aren't they? So
yeah.
I do, and same for game as well. But I have got a theory that I reckon anyone could eat anything if it was cooked the right way for them.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
wonder whether people who say, "Oh, I don't like whatever it is, pork, for example," I wonder whether their parents or grandparents cooked a pork dinner once but mutilated it, and therefore
Mm.
that's just what they think pork tastes like. So I do think that, because I never used to like liver. And I had liver at a restaurant. Don't ask me why I ordered it. I think I was drunk at the time. But they brought out this lamb's liver, gravy, onions, and mash. And honestly, it was one of the best meals I've ever had. And I don't know how they cooked it, but they cooked it like a steak. It was just phenomenal. So yeah, I've got this theory that if you can cook it right, I reckon you could eat anything. Um, so I'll do you something goatee. What shall I put back? Are you going to edit this in now, or
Yeah, well, yeah. What we're going to put it straight onto the table for the next person. So, what would you like to leave? It can be something kind, something you'd
kind?
like people to try, or it could be something extreme.
Well, there's nothing. It'd be quite nice to leave something gamey, wouldn't it? That's
Yeah.
probably the
It feels
theme.
appropriate. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Should we go with rabbit or should we go with venison? Venison's like, let's go with rabbit because that's a little bit more. That's a little bit more out there. Have you
Tom.
guys ever had hare?
I've not had hare. I've had rabbit a few times.
Yeah, I've had
Yeah, I've
rabbit
had
and
rabbit, but
rabbit. I've had hare and I've not enjoyed it.
What's
I've
the
not had huge
difference?
amounts of game, to
It's
be fair. But
it's very very strong.
Yeah.
Um, from what I'm told anyway, and this one was very very strong. But yeah, hare's in a different league. I'll tell you the worst thing that I've ever had, which is one of the best things. So I got sent a meat box, and it was one of these where there's like kangaroo and buffalo, you know, all this sort of thing. And there's two steaks in there, and I looked at it and read the label, horse.
Horse.
Anyway, so it was the last one to be used. Obviously, we didn't want it, and I thought, well, I can't throw it out because that's literally just a waste. I can't do that. So I'm cooking it up, and I'm thinking, you know, I hope this is horrible, basically. And anyway, cooked the steak up, seasoned it, and it turned out to be one of the best steaks I've ever had. It was yeah, it was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So other countries do it, don't they?
France.
They
My dad
do.
lived in France for a while.
Yeah.
I begged him to buy some horse when I was out there, and he was just like, nope, nope, nope. But I mean,
Did he say nay? Oh,
yeah,
I'm
yes, Owen.
sorry.
Normally it's me making the awful puns. But I've had zebra before. I've had kangaroo before. I've had
Yeah,
crocodile
same.
before.
Really nice.
So I want to try horse. And to be fair, I've probably had it in a Findus lasagna back in the 90s. Let's be
Definitely.
honest, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We all remember that outbreak. No, it was very, very nice, rich steak. It was spectacular actually. I would definitely try it. But then I'll tell you something controversial now. There's I won't say who, there's a producer over this way, and they are going to produce effectively horse meat, but from a breed of like a Shetland pony.
Ooh,
So
hello.
it's really, really out there, and they have a really strong profile in supporting soil biodiversity, you know, all the good stuff, regenerative farming, things like that. And I said that's out there. That's really, really out there. That that could destroy you potentially. And they came back strong, and they said that actually, in terms of the market for some of these rare breeds of ponies, not just ponies, pigs, cat, like all the other things as well, is that if they aren't being kept as pets and being ridden and get to sit in their little fields and things like that, these rare breeds will die out.
Yeah.
And so to save the breed, they actually need to produce them, and effectively they need to be eaten so that the numbers actually stay around. I mean, that's just one perspective, but I get it. If they're not pets, they could go, and then no one has them.
Well,
It's gonna be a tough sell though to a consumer, isn't it?
Nah, if it's going to save Shetland ponies, let me have a nibble on a leg. Do you know what I mean? Get me in there.
Imagine walking around a food festival with a leg of Shetland.
Or even like think about when they have like the suckling pig on a spit and everyone comes and looks, just a Shetland pony spinning round.
It's bizarre, isn't it? It's bizarre what is acceptable and not acceptable to eat.
Yeah.
You can't eat a fluffy bunny rabbit, but yet you can eat a baby lamb and a suckling pig and all this sort of thing. It's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre, our population, but it is what it is.
Indeed. Well, I think as we kind of come towards the end, Alex, is there anything that perhaps we haven't covered yet that you think would be really kind of good to bring up? Obviously,
No,
give yourself a plug in a second. Naturally, tell everyone where we can find you, of course.
Yeah. I mean, that's it for me. Is I just want to keep growing. I mean, my goal is to have ideally, the largest network of people and businesses that are out there. I always want to be connected to as many people as possible, so that we can promote the right messages and things like that. So yeah, if people can jump on the Instagram and YouTube as well, those are my two main platforms at the moment. I just want to keep growing that. So hopefully I haven't put too many people off. And what I try and do is, even with the shooting, I try and do it in a tasteful way. So I'm not showing the blood and guts as such. On YouTube, it's all there, to be fair. But certainly Instagram, I'm not putting those sorts of pictures up. For me, Instagram, that's about the food, whereas perhaps YouTube is more about the reality of what's going on. But any support is always appreciated.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Alex.
I've enjoyed it.
Cheers.
All right, bye.
Bye.
And that's it for another episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue Podcast. Thank you so much, Alex. If you hadn't had the chance, go out there, have a look at him on Instagram, all socials, and YouTube, and get a real feel for some of the great cooking and other bits and pieces that he does. Thank you so much for following us. Please do like, subscribe, and all of that jazz. You know how to find us across all the different medias of social and your favorite podcasting app. But also check out on the link. You'll see something new in there, which is about asking us a question. We'd love to hear from you. Unfortunately, doesn't give us the way to respond. So if you'd like to hear back from us as well, leave some contact details, a way that we can get a hold of you. And until next time, keep on grilling.
Today's episode is brought to you by AOS Kitchens, the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.